On December 15th, I will be running a contest and we will be giving away this awesome Marvel Spotlight number 7, featuring the third appearance of Ghost Rider. This is a thank you for all of you who have helped make this channel grow so rapidly. We hit 1,000 subscriptions in 4 months and it's still growing, and I'm already thinking about the 1,500 subscriber giveaway. So please stand by and tune into the channel on December 15th for your chance to win this. Thank you very much for all your support. Here we have our 1940 Pep Comics number 3 cover wrap. Now, the spine was completely split in half. It is held together by ancient tape, and the rear cover, I've come to discover, is also held together in 2 pieces by tape. So we're going to remove all the tape today. We're going to start off with a syringe of Bastine. Now, this is probably going to be a refresher for a lot of you if you've been following my videos. But I do like to use Bastine for removal of tape. This tape isn't particularly yellowed, which is a sign of a photogenic reaction over decades of time. So that was kind of an interesting thing to cover. The yellowed tape generally comes off a lot easier than the newer tapes, or I should say the tape that hasn't been crystallized. What happens is well, I'll be honest, it's a lot stickier and a little bit more difficult to remove. So using the syringe, I'm very carefully going underneath the edge. Now you notice I have my jeweler's goggles on, and if you're doing this sort of work, I highly recommend it because you are dealing with stuff the size of a needle close up, and you want to get every single piece of adhesive off of the book. So what we're doing with the Bastine is separating the adhesive from the carrier, the plastic film. And in doing so, the film will come off and it will leave a an adhesive residue on the book. It's very sticky. We got to be very careful when we touch it because otherwise we may end up tearing the book. So I'm going to give you some close-up pictures here of the work. I'm upgrading a lot of my camera system here to make my videos a little bit more informative than having you guess what I'm doing when I'm doing the work. So here we have this first piece of tape on the cover. This was one of the major pieces I wanted to be very careful to try not to destroy. I'm just very gently lifting with the needle. At the same time, I'm forcing Bastine out of the needle and underneath the tape. It takes a minute to soak into the adhesive, and it will start lifting. And you see this is a very, very tedious process. Now, I'm not showing you the whole tape removal process because it took me 8 hours to remove all the tape from this cover wrap. So I'm being very, very careful not to destroy any more of the paper. You can see right where the mine is, it's already lost a couple of pieces of color. We don't want to lose any more. So this is a very gentle and tedious process, as I said. Now I'm not pulling on the tape at all. I'm just gently lifting it and keeping it from re-sticking down to the paper. So let's move this back down. You get a general idea of how the tape removal process works. So now we're going to go through and continue And I apologize again, as I usually do. I try to keep my head out of the way as much as possible, but sometimes it's just simply unavoidable. So we'll continue working this piece of tape. It's a very, very gentle, and as you can see, patience is an absolute must when you're doing this kind of work. The whole objective is to get every single piece of tape off of this book. Now, we are going to submit this book for a conserved grade. Now, if there's any tape on the book whatsoever, it could make the difference between a blue conserved label or a purple restored label. CGC has been changing how they assess some of the restoration work, especially in regards to tape and residue and anything else that's on the cover. So when I'm doing this sort of work, my preference is to remove all the tape. There are some instances where you can leave the tape attached and still get a blue label from CGC. But I think that's getting fewer and far between since CGC has changed how they're doing their grades. Now, as we move along through this process, I'm just showing you the removal of this one piece. And like I said, this took me 8 hours to get all of this tape off the book. So in the next section here, the tape will be removed, and I will show you everything. And then we're going to start the reassembly, the rejoining of all of the pieces into one cover wrap once again. So this is actually some of the more exciting and important parts. Now here's what we ended up with. And this isn't even all of the tape. Some of it is off screen. I just didn't have it for the picture. But as you can see, the book is in 3 different pieces, and this is what we're going to reassemble. Okay, the tape has been removed from the wrap, and as you can see, there's quite a bit of it. It was all holding the cover together. Sadly, of course, we already knew that it was in 3 pieces, so we'll go ahead and get these pieces reassembled. I did the best that I could to retain all of the paper. As I said previously, I didn't videotape the removal of all of the tape because it took so long. So I figured that's a little bit much to ask of all of you to sit through. This book, the back cover was in 2 pieces. So we're going to go ahead and rejoin these pieces together, and then we're going to rejoin the whole assembly back to the main cover. Then we'll reinforce the spine from the interior, clean it up the best we can. It has been deacidified, so it's just a matter of reattaching the pieces. We're going to start with the pieces. We're going to get them wet, and then we're going to use Tengu-jo paper and wheat paste, and we're going to use the white paper in this particular case. We're dealing with a white cover, and when we get to the interior wraps, there's a couple that have tear repairs that we're going to have to do that with a tan Tengu-jo paper, which I have right here. So you can see the differences are quite stark, but this is better for a more tanned interior paper from the pre-war actually. So we're dealing with a quite old book from 1940. So let's get to it, and I'll show you how we do everything. Okay, so we're back with our cover wrap. Now, what we're going to do here is carefully peel back. So let's work from the other side here. Since we're going to be working on one half. And what I have over here, just off camera, is a spray bottle of water. I want to keep the area that we're working on damp, so it doesn't dry out, and it's easier to work with the Tengu-jo. You can even see that it's already starting to lighten. Now, this is going to be the careful part. I need to reattach this We have to be very, very careful. So it's got to be just right. So in this particular case, we have a piece of the cover that is split, right down the center. So I'm going to have to lay this one down, and then we're going to have to carefully overlay this piece on top of this one and match everything up that way. And we're going to double check this after we get everything in position. So luckily I can line up some of these spots. And one thing about working with the Japanese paper is if we mess something up, it's always removable. So we're gonna, okay, that looks pretty good there. Just very carefully start lowering stuff into position, and we'll line up the words, and hopefully everything looks the same on the other side as it should. Okay, so this is a little bit off here. This is very tedious work. As I said, it took me 6 hours to remove the tape. So this to me is the second most tedious part, is making sure everything is perfect where it should be. We're getting a little bit closer here, and I am wearing my famous jeweler's goggles right now, because I need to just really make sure everything is lined up just right. So I am going to stick my head over here so I get a really up close look here. So I want to make sure everything right down to the last fiber is lined up, all the words look right. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and re-moisten this particular piece, just a little, just the area that we're working in. Okay, now what we want to do here is, you can barely see where I'm working, but as we all know, it's there. So we're going to cover using Tengu-jo paper again. Now we're rejoining the halves of the book. It's very important that we have a fairly straight and thin tear. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tear this slightly off camera, but I'm going to tear it against this ruler so I get a semi-straight edge. And again, we want our fibers torn because we need that nice feathery edge. So I'm going to tear this against the ruler. I'll still get a feathery edge out of it, but it will be semi-straight, which is what we want. And in this particular case, since the cover was not torn in a straight line, it kind of doesn't make sense to do anything with one long piece. So I think what we're going to do is piece this out. So I'll just make a couple of different length pieces here. So I think maybe about 3 inches for the first piece. Now I'm going to get up close here and I'm going to lay this down, and I want to be very, very careful. I can see where everything is. I want to tear some of these fibers a little bit more so we don't get any thick pieces. Remember, I still want to make this as non-noticeable as possible. I mean, it's not like we're trying to hide anything. So if you think that's what we're after, don't do that. We are preserving a piece of art, is the way I look at it, and that's the way my contemporaries and I all look at it. So I'm going to lay this down. Actually, I think what I'm going to do is we'll take our wheat paste. I'm going to lay down a line here where I'm going to work. Right across this tear. And always have good, you guys probably all laugh at me because I'm an old man, I can't see. But I do my best. Okay, so now what we're going to do is lay down this first piece. I'm going to overhang it just ever so slightly off the edge here. There we go. Lay that down, and we'll take and tear another piece of about the same length, and we'll see if I can thin this out a little bit so we don't need a huge stripe. All I need to do is just re-bond these pieces right over where this tear is. Okay, it takes a hard left here, so I'm going to just go ahead and tear that a little bit early. So, as we've talked about before, we want to, and I use a warm wheat paste. I heat it up in the microwave. It takes a lot of the chunky stuff out. Now what we do with the wheat paste is we brush away from the tear on both sides. That way we can join the Japanese paper with the book. And so far this is looking pretty good. Okay, so I've got a couple little beads. I'll pick these up. Most of it will get smashed out. Alright, I think we're ready to move on to our next section here. This is where I said it took a kind of a hard left right here. Now, if you watch some of my other videos, I've talked about using methyl cellulose versus wheat paste. They both have their advantages and disadvantages. Now, the wheat paste is thicker, but it is also stronger. So I like to use that on tears on the cover, especially as spine reinforcement. It works. It's probably the best thing you're going to find. Where the methyl cellulose works great as well. However, I like that better for the interior pages because it's a little bit more clear. Alright, so we're in our home stretch for this big tear. We're almost there. Okay, and I'm tear right there. Just a little bit short because we're still going to rejoin the other half of the book, or the other half of the cover. So same thing, we just get this wheat paste in here. We make sure we get all the feathery pieces down. We don't want any Japanese paper that's not got wheat paste on it. It's very important. Otherwise, it's literally going to look like bird feathers when the thing is dried. So, okay, I'm really happy with all of this. It's virtually invisible, as you can see, and the half has been rejoined, or I should say this lower third has been rejoined. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to roll this paper back over, and we're going to press this down a bit. Now, wheat paste and methyl cellulose, neither of which they don't stick to the Hollytex. And just a little added commentary on Hollytex. It is a non-woven fiber material, and I use this constantly because nothing sticks to it. It is a fantastic medium for doing this type of work and for doing any leaf casting or things like that. Okay, so I'm happy with this. What I'm doing here is using just my finger pressure and smashing it down so there's no extra beads of wheat paste at all. So now we're ready to start joining this up. Well, almost. We still have to do a repair on this big tear here. So I'm going to lift this up just a second, and we're going to separate this away from the piece we've just been working on. The big tear is right here in the cover. Now I want to make sure that these overlap properly. So it's very important that the colors match up and the tear lines up. And there's a little bit of color loss, unfortunately. There's a huge piece of tape that ran the length over this, where the shield is carrying this mine that's attached to a parachute, and I guess he's dropping them on the German submarines. So let's go ahead and flip this back over. It looks like it's going to line up fairly well. So same deal here. We have this camping setup. I'm going to go ahead and drop my goggles here and make sure we get this lined up just right perfect. I think this is going to do it just fine. All right. All right, so let's go ahead. I'm going to moisten this just a hair. Okay. So I can see my tear a little bit better. So I'm going to take the wheat paste again, and I'm going to go right along